Baron Bun Brief, 14 November 25. First they came for the barking dogs, but I was not one, and I did not speak up. Then they came for the crowing roosters, and I was not one, so I did not speak up. Then they came for the baby's feet in your face all night, and I'm not a baby's foot, so I didn't speak up. But then they came for the 0300 coffee drinkers, and I spoke up, and I splattered their brain matter all over the wall, because we don't mess with 0300 coffee drinkers. Good morning, everyone. The Trump administration has floated a proposal to back 50-year mortgages. We're thinking maybe 50, maybe 105. We're not really sure yet. Probably forever mortgages. I like this thing. It's called feudalism. A move that the Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte calls, quote, a complete game changer. Yeah, for whom? The plan aims to help buyers afford homes by spreading payments over 2 decades longer than the standard 30-year term. Trump downplayed the criticism of the idea, saying, all it means is you pay less per month, you pay it over a longer period of time. It's not like a big factor. It might help a bit. End quote. Here's a look at the numbers. Using a $400,000 home with 6.25% interest rate and 10% down payment, senior economist Joel Berner, that's the name from Zimbabwe, calculated that a 50-year loan would save roughly $250 per month compared to a 30-year mortgage. But the long-term cost? Quote, total interest on the 50-year loan would amount to $816,396 compared to $438,156 on the 30-year loan, a difference of only $378,240 additional doll hairs in interest. That's 86% more interest over the life of the loan, end quote. This assumes equal interest rates, but in reality, lenders would demand higher rates for the longer term, making the gap even worse. Critics point out that borrowers would be exposed to debt for an additional 20 years, and the standard repayment structure means they'd build equity at a glacial pace. Chris Hendricks, Senior Vice President for Home Loans Unit of NBKC Bank, notes that, quote, you're going to be paying almost all interest for the first 10 years. It's really akin to an interest-only loan at that point. End quote. Now, my understanding, you might not know this, but I am not a financial expert, a guru. I don't play one on YouTube. Let's be honest, I don't know shit, okay? I got a face made for radio, and for some reason you people like listening to what I have to say, so here we are. But it's my understanding that the 30-year mortgage or the 15-year mortgage are not going away. They're just adding a 50-year mortgage option, which I think is retarded. The median homebuyer age now sits at 59 years old, which is the highest since tracking began in 1981. First-time buyers now average 40 years old. As Jimi Hendrix put it, you're looking at a generation, no, not Jimi Hendrix, Chris Hendricks of NBKC Bank. You're looking at a generation that has not had the ability to get into a property, start building equity, start building wealth from a home, end quote. Rather than extending debt terms, some experts argue the focus should be on lowering interest rates through reduced inflation, limiting corporate investors from outbidding individual buyers, and expanding housing supply through increased construction. Also, hear me out. Hear me out on this. What if the dollar didn't lose 10% of its purchasing power year over year, in large part thanks to quantitative easing and the printing of money out of thin air, to where we can no longer afford to mint a penny because the penny costs more to produce than it's worth, and soon to be the nickel next. What if the money, I know, hear me out, what if the money actually had some like inherent value, like it made noise, Something. Also, squirrel. Man, I don't know how I feel that this cosmic sunburn didn't knock us back into the Stone Age. I was ready to shave my mustache and just be Amish. Hitch up the mule train and call it good. And that's like, what's money now? Chickens, sourdough bread, labor. Yeah. But alas, we persist. Meanwhile, broader financial warning signs are emerging. Yay! One is that the Federal Reserve recently injected only $50.35 billion into the financial system on October 31st through repurchase agreements, the highest use of that facility since 2021. Nothing to see here, folks. Analysts describe this as signs of a short-term credit crunch, with some calling it, quote, a canary in the coal mine, end quote, for growing financial stress. Money is draining from the system as the Fed's quantitative tightening coincides with heavy government bond sales to fund the ballooning budget deficit. Yeah, imagine that. By the way, if all the money talk makes you want to jump off a tall building, hang tight. We're going to do national intel here in a minute. Another warning sign is that American household debt has also hit a record $18.59 trillion. American household debt, $18.59 trillion. For comparison, that's about 18.59 times the size of the annual Department of Defense budget. Department of War. Okay. As of Q3 2025, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, a trustworthy witness, mortgage balances alone stand at $13 trillion, while credit card debt reached $1.23 trillion. Overall delinquency rates remain elevated at 4.5%, with serious delinquencies 90 days or more at 3%, up 1.68% a year earlier. Fed Chair Jerome Powell, that guy who needs to be tied behind a pickup truck and taken for a ride, has acknowledged a, quote, bifurcated economy, end quote, where, quote, consumers at the lower end are struggling and buying less and shifting to lower cost products, but at the top, people are spending at the higher end of income and wealth. Well, that's great. As long as you're one of those people at the top, everything's great, isn't it? And if you're not, well, too bad. Let them eat cake. I have said for years, I fear that we are approaching a let them eat cake moment in the Estados Unidos, the United States of America, because you just can't buy anything with the U.S. dollar anymore. National intel at bearindependent.com. Intel at bearindependent.com. Where do I send this email? Intel at bearindependent.com. Or you can use the contact us page at bearindependent.com. Did I say bearindependent.com enough? Because it's bearindependent.com, bearindependent.com. I live here in East Tennessee, and while attending a cheer practice with my kids, I heard an extremely obnoxious alarm go off from a pager on the hip of a gentleman in front of me. After checking the pager, the man promptly got on the phone and began Remember pagers? Back in the day, pagers that I know some of y'all are just like, what's a pager? It's the thing that Israel uses to blow up Hamas and others. After checking the pager, the man promptly got on the phone and began coordinating with people and directing them to a local substation. That would be like for the electrical grid. The conversation was short, but his directives were clear. Get there now so we don't lose power to the whole valley. I then struck up a conversation with the man about the crumbling electrical grid, which he confirmed pretty much everything you, me, Bear, have been talking about for the years I've been watching. It would only take 3 substation attacks to shut off power for most of CONUS, continental United States, provided they were the right ones. This is what we call a cascading grid failure. At some point, I'm like, why? I feel often that I might as well just be talking to this wall over here. What's up, wall? Do you have a plan, wall, for when, not if, but when the grid goes away? Because it's looking pretty gnarly. And as a guy, Mr. Wallace, a guy that built a significant portion of the United States electrical grid, I can tell you it's not hunky-dory. It's not very resilient at all. Add in the increased power demands for things like artificial intelligence, which there's fears that from a stock market level, the tech bros who have been investing trillions of doll hairs into each other's AI companies, average American industries kind of like, this AI thing's kind of gay. Like, we don't like it. Stop. So there's concerns that there could be an AI bubble coming, which myself personally, I'm like, cool, because I don't really like it either. And if we're going to have a bubble, let's have a bubble relatively early with this technology, like before Terminator 2 becomes a documentary. But I digress. It would only take 3 substation attacks to shut off power from most of CONUS, provided they were the right ones. He also added that the problem they're having is that the infrastructure is overloaded. The power lines we have are over capacity by about a factor of 3. Too many houses are pulling from the lines, and they're only building more. He compared it to fixing a broken dam with Band-Aids. He said all of his guys are on overtime trying to keep things together in preparation for winter. This has prompted me to consider a tertiary method of heating for my family. 2 is 1 and 1 is none. I appreciate all that you do. Keep spreading the word. God bless the Bear Nation. Hey, thanks for sending that in. Next, all of the Chevron gas stations in northern Arizona are having card payment issues where some transactions can't go through. A few more gas stations are experiencing the same issue. It's like I've heard someone say that there's a persistent, ongoing zero-day IT hack. LOL. Time to pull out cash, silver, and eggs? ? I don't know, man. I'll tell you this. I like having some cash on hand. How much cash? If you got it, let's pretend I'm Dave Ramsey and he's into prepping. Emergency fund, right? You're supposed to start with $1,000 emergency fund and then build up to 6 months worth of expenses in your emergency fund. Money, liquidity, cash just sitting in the bank has lost 10% of its value this year. Even if you put it in like a high yield money market of 5%, great, it's only down 5%. The nice thing, to the extent that there is a nice thing about the U.S. doll hair. Oh, look, here's one. This thing. This make-believe piece of paper right here. Is that it has velocity. It has liquidity. It moves. It is accepted, mandated for commerce. It moves faster than silver, gold. Not quite as fast as lead, though, but that's a different threat matrix. My point here is, if you could have a month, 2 months, 90 days worth of cash on hand, that'd be cool. If you can't, do what you can do. Silver, it's doing well. It's definitely doing better than the U.S. dollar. And it's not that the value of silver has gone up. It's that the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar as compared to silver has gone down. Next. So, to caveat on your Wednesday intel that where you mentioned Walmart and Amazon, I want to let you know another large, and in fact the largest truck carrier in the world, and not Swift, LOL, has now combined 3 of its divisions and is now partnered with the FAA, and is now requiring all its employees to be FAA certified, even its contractors. Security at these facilities has been stepped up tenfold, and major consequences are being handed out for not following procedures, even though said procedures have not been discussed. Oh, remember when I mentioned that Walmart has a plan to go pick up only by 2027? How far away is that? It's about 13 months. What an interesting timeline. How does this stuff get to the Walmarts? Think about that. Go deeper. Where does the stuff come from? How fragile is your supply chain? Because, see, most of y'all consume, not produce. Most of y'all do not manufacture stuff. And so you are subjected to everybody else's supply chain. I was speaking with somebody yesterday who's a very interesting individual who's also into additive manufacturing. I'll just leave it at that. It's 3D printing. And he's like, starting about 3 months ago, started getting all these notices saying, essentially, get what you need now, because in the next 6 to 12 months, all these Chinese-produced filaments, you're not going to be able to get them. And he's like, by and large, the nerds in the 3D printing community are like, oh no, I can't make an articulating dragon now. It's like, but what they're missing is the broader point here of the timeline. Where do these things come from? Back to FAA and trucks. Security at these facilities has been stepped up tenfold, and major consequences are being handed out for not following procedures, even though said procedures have not been discussed. Most facilities have had 15-foot plus high walls built around them and or 12-foot high fences with electrical lines added for redundancy. I worked for this organization for 3 years, and I can say this is the tightest I've ever seen this. Curiosity strikes why the sudden change without notice, but then punish those for non-compliance with orders. Many are left scratching their heads, including internal management. This company has always held the FAA regs, but they've never enforced those regs on the drivers and contractors. That has now all changed. They've tightened up security at all facilities, and they're working out any and all gaps in said security. Coincidence? Maybe. Or is there something more? Perhaps. Time will tell. Stay safe, stay frosty. Thanks, Dance Monkeys and the Intel team. Next, I'm a construction superintendent for a large real estate developer here in the Rockies. Construction has been on a tear the past few years, but now seems to be tapering off. I recently posted some help wanted ads on Indeed.com and had quite a few people apply, surprisingly from concrete flat work guys. That's usually the first indicator of a slowdown in new construction, so I asked one of my framers, and he also said that framing jobs are getting harder to come by, aka slowdown, and that price wars are starting to happen, particularly with tract housing. Recently, we've been experiencing some unexpected supply chain issues when it comes to things like LVP flooring, electrical junction boxes, pipe fittings, valves, fiberglass shower enclosures, and especially with appliances. I was told just last week that our supplier for the flooring, which we buy truckloads of, is currently on back order, and they can't even give us a delivery date. Not sure if it's because of the trade wars, companies ratcheting down production, or what, but it's starting to become an issue. Yeah, homie, you and every other industry. Get what you need while you can. What you need while you can. Next, a recent post from you mentioned a Christian-based food pantry seeing extra demand, and you commented, "The Lord will provide." I thought, why can't I help with that? I contacted a local food pantry and a local firearms store that has an army truck and asked if we could do a Fill the Army Truck event to help. Their response was yes, and in a week we filled the bed of the truck and also raised $421 in checks. Good job. When we delivered to the food pantry, it appeared we were almost doubling the inventory they had. The director mentioned that the demand had increased significantly in recent weeks. They were very thankful. I'd asked the Father to use me as his hands and feet, and he did. It was amazing to me how everything fell into place so easily. Praise the Most High. Next, I work at an auto parts manufacturer here in Indiana. We make parts for Honda and for Toyota. For the past month, Honda's been struggling to get the materials they need to make chips. Go figure. And get this, our local Walmart doesn't even have a first aid section anymore. It's just gone. I feel like I might have heard somewhere. It's amazing. So the average American comprehends at a third grade level, and they retain 40% of the information that's presented to them. Now, the Bear Nation is above average. But it's still, sometimes I feel like I'm talking to this wall over here. I feel like I've said to y'all on many occasions, which some of y'all think is like fear-based sales, and it's not. It's true. The pre-hospital first aid supply manufacturers, that space is 75% owned at a minimum by private equity. They are doing away with point of sale and retail, and will be working through wholesalers only. And stuff is getting harder and harder to get. So get what you need while you can. The local Walmart doesn't even have a first aid section anymore. It's just gone. But here's the real reason I'm reaching out. On 9 November 25, our company stopped receiving all external emails. We can still email each other internally, but nothing is coming in from outside. At first, everyone thought it was just a server issue. By the end of the day, they found out our entire domain had been deleted. And apparently, we're not the only company this has happened to. When I heard that, all I could think of was your voice saying, "Repeat after me. There's a persistent and ongoing zero-day exploit hitting everything connected to the internet, even at the highest levels." End quote. Yeah, thanks for the intel. Next, I work as a chef in a restaurant on the outer North Carolina Outer Banks. This area is frequented by second homeowners from Northern Virginia. I was able to have a couple conversations with a patron by the name of Person. Person was a duty officer on 9/11 in the White House Situation Room. He is now the president of company. Having met with him before, I asked him if I could put on my tinfoil hat to ask him a question. His eyes opened wide and he scooted a little closer. Being a Bear Independent patron, I asked him about the South China Sea going hot in 15-ish months. These are some key points of what he said. First, he described the terrain of Taiwan and how China is timing it with the weather and the tides, I believe saying that it can really only be easy for them to invade at certain points in the weather pattern. China wants to take over Taiwan without firing a shot, referring to Sun Tzu's Art of War. China has already gotten into our critical infrastructure through backdoors with chips and software purchased by state municipal governments looking to buy the capability to establish and run this infrastructure at the best cost of those governments for decades now. Man, where have I heard this before? Then he mentioned the SIM card farms found in a New York City apartment a couple of months ago. Then he described a ransom scenario where China walks into Taiwan while simultaneously using their software to freeze up ATMs and bank software in the U.S., cutting everyday citizens' ability to transact. Interesting. Then sending hundreds of thousands to millions of U.S. citizens text messages repeatedly, communicating that we don't want to intervene in Taiwan, and that we need to contact our representatives to get them to tell the U.S. government not to intervene and let China have Taiwan. If we don't stop the U.S. government from intervening, they would cut off the electrical grid. Our conversation went on about the implications of this happening. Since I've already been long-winded, I'll cut it there. I want to mention that all of this is open source intelligence. He mentioned that 15 months is the right timescale, but it could happen any day. Yeah. I remain about 25% confident, 20% confident in that timeline. Yeah, 15, 18-ish months. I'm 80% confident that if it happens, it goes down the way I've described for years. Do the things, Bear Nation. Do the things. Shout out to the creator of the universe for allowing us to wake up this morning, even if it was obnoxiously early. To the wonderful people on Patreon, the economic engine of the Bear Nation. Last night's Patreon exclusive live stream Thursday was good. I believe everybody enjoyed it. A little over 2 hours long. And of course, refugemedical.com, purveyors of the best first aid kits on planet Earth. Why should you care? Because our stuff, our kits, and our training will actually get you home again. It's not some price point Chinesium bullshit. It's not good idea fairy stuff. It's rarely even boo-boo kits, to be honest. But pre-hospital trauma med, critical bleeding, airway management, respiratory management, circulation, head injury, hypothermia, lethal triad, acidosis. The stuff that's going to kill you, we got you for that. And if you're like, yeah, but what do all those words mean? There's 4 hours of free videos of training, pre-hospital trauma medicine training on refugemedical.com. Click the training tab. And if there's anything we can do to assist you in your endeavor to stay alive for as long as possible, be it the Father's will, give us a call, shoot us an email, use the chat function on the store, and as always, promo code BearNation, get you 10% off everything at refugemedical.com. I appreciate you, boys and gerbils. I hope you have a blessed day, a wonderful day of rest, and I am on to other things now. I'll see you when I see you.